So picture this. You just got a brand new speaker and you plug it into your fast charger. You're an enthusiastic one. And what happens, this is a cheap speaker. This is not too expensive. So it doesn't have any protection against 3 amps of straight current. So what happens? You get beautiful smoke out of it. It fries the board. And where are you left? You just spent all that money on nothing. Or this thing could be salvaged. So that's where replacement boards come in. So I'll have it up on the screen. This replacement board that costs 208 rupees, right? This speaker costs 1000 rupees. So, hey, that's 1/5 of the cost. Doesn't sound too bad. So if that board is smoking, it's gone, it's shorted, something's wrong with it. Could you possibly throw this 208 rupee part and just turn it into a brand new speaker? And if you could, how good would it be? Would it be as good as new? Do you have a semblance of brand new, or is it just going to be some random sound making device? That is exactly what we're here to discuss in this video, find out for ourselves. So we got two identical, both Stone 200. I'll have the product page for this up on the screen right now in case you were interested. And the board that we just saw is going to be installed in this bad boy. And I mean, it is installed already. I'll show a picture of how it's wired up, and I'll shortly explain through what I've done to this particular speaker that's different from the factory one. And if you don't want to see that, you can skip over to this timing. I've displayed a time, and let's get right into it. Now this image shows you what has been done to this particular speaker, board swap and battery swap. But the battery swap is largely irrelevant. I've installed these particular batteries from Amazon. They cost this amount on the screen. And the board is as we saw, and this is how it's set up. You got the board up on the top, and you got the battery in the bottom. The battery is in the stock holder. There was a little bit of modification required to get it to fit because the form factor was, it had a button type instead of a flat top. So it didn't go in perfectly. So that's the battery part. And I've removed all the guts. The board where it's supposed to be on the inside is completely out. I've mounted it outside. The board is now outside of the speaker. And there's a very good reason for doing that. You wouldn't be able to close the speaker properly if you kept this particular board inside. It would have clearance issues. And okay, you might be thinking, all right, clearing issues, not too bad. I can just run it with the back open. You can't, because this bad boy, this particular model in particular, or mostly other speakers, they have a closed, sealed design for a very particular reason. You will have a passive radiator, which looks a bit like this. This is a passive radiator that I got from a different speaker, and it's essentially, well, a metal plate or some sort of heavy metal plate that is suspended with rubber, which vibrates as a part of the sealed structure. This gives you your bass in small speakers. You don't have a ported back or any of the stuff you get to see in subwoofers or larger speakers. This is a passive radiator, and this is how these speakers generate their bass. So if you had a clearance issue and you just say, okay, I'm running it in the open, you're gonna have horrible bass and it's gonna sound really bad. The low end is gonna be non-existent. We don't want that. We want this to be a good speaker. So that's where this, you see on the side of it, you can see a bunch of, well, white substances. This would be foam tape, something that looks like this. And you might be thinking, okay, you're closing it up, fine. Does it need to be sealed with some kind of gasket? Yes, it does. Why? Because audio, my friend. Because, yeah, science. This particular model had a complete rubber construction around, and here it is evidently missing. A bunch of the rubber is gone, and that is not by design, as you can see here. it's falling apart. The rubber is disintegrating. It is just something that happens with over time. You can't really stop it. You can completely delete all of it, like I've done here. And there's one advantage that this bad boy has over this one, is that I've installed a plastic blind for these speaker holes, button holes, which will in fact help with the base of this one, which this unfortunately has holes in it because it's disintegrated. That's gonna be on boat, so we're not gonna worry too much about that. So that's it for the rundown of the design and replacement steps that has been gone into running this aftermarket board that is up top. This is the board that we saw and is wired via the old micro SD port. It's wired inside and it's connected to all the components. That's the TLDR of the design. So, is it better? Does it even match the old speaker board? That's what we're here to check out. We got our trusty phone here, trusty prop. This can go somewhere. And now, let this test begin. Let's see a snippet played from the original board. I am thoroughly unimpressed, whether that would be because of, well, the speaker itself being the size of a pillbox, or the bass being ruined by these holes, or, well, the speaker itself. That's a mystery until we try this out, because this has been completely sealed. At least acoustically speaking, this doesn't suffer from the bass loss that this would theoretically have, but we are yet to see that. And now testing the same song from the same phone. Of course, I had this on aux for convenience purposes, but let's try this out on this speaker with the aftermarket board, and you can be the judge if it sounds any better. So, initial impressions, I think the bass is way better on this one. So the theory checks out. The fact that this has those holes in it is definitely messing with the bass. So moving on from bass, clearly this wins, but not because of the board itself, but because of how I've treated the holes and deterioration that has happened. Even the old holes have been sealed off with hot glue. So the bass, the punch is much better on the aftermarket board. So that's one for the aftermarket board. So moving on, test number 2. Trebles, hi-hats, all that jazz. Not jazz, that would be mids. But we're gonna look at the up top frequency range right now, and it's gonna be an interesting little flick. Dude, there's an ad every 10 seconds. I am not standing this. Right, so we got a hi-hat loop. Aftermarket board. Switching over to the factory board. To my ears, this edges this out just a little bit, but I would say it's comparable. It's not noticeably worse. The bass was noticeably worse on the factory board, well, of course, but for the hi-hats, they're pretty evenly matched. So we're gonna have to see mids to see if this boy's losing out or we're getting anything good. So here we're looking at vocals. Mids, not mid. Mids are the best. Alright, mids. If you listen to Sade, you know what I'm talking about. We're gonna test out the mids on this, the factory board, first.
Deeper than I let anyone else before. Filling up my broken pieces from all of them yours. Didn't know my heart be needed. Skipping out, no, I can't keep score. When I lose my breath, boy, you got me breathing. Oh, every little thing you do, every time you hold me, take me higher, higher. Every little thing you do, every time.
All right. Now for the aftermarket board, let's see if they do any differently at all.
I let you deeper than I let anyone else before. Filling up my broken pieces from all of them yours. Didn't know my heart be needed. Skipping out, no, I can't keep score. When I lose my breath, boy, you got me breathing. Oh, every little thing you do, every time you hold me, take me higher, higher. Every little thing you do, every time you hold me, take me higher, higher.
All right. So my opinion there is gonna be that the aftermarket board didn't have a kind of muddled sound. This had a bit of a muddy sound. Can we attribute that to just the materials deteriorating? I'm not sure. This has had the battery replaced. The board is new, as we know, and all the holes have been acoustically coated. And that has in fact upgraded the sound of this from like a muddled, unclear bass and not clear vocals. And I mean, the hi-hats were almost identical on both because just looking at how clear those high frequencies were, they were kind of the same. But when you listen to it in a mix, in a song, it really gets drowned out with the old one. And this is actually technically older, but it's been, of course, treated. I'm gonna say that for the 11th time. Excuse me. And yeah. But there's one thing I'm curious about. I was running this on aux mode. Does this sound any better on Bluetooth mode? That is a very pretty sound instead of play. I would take that. That sounds like a chandelier. That sounds like a candlelit dinner. I mean, I'm taking it. Never mind, it sounds just about the same. So, that about concludes everything for this video. We took a look at all three ranges of frequencies. We went through a little explanation as to how this was modified. And hey, if you got any old speakers, it is 100% worth it to refresh it with an aftermarket board. That is the takeaway from this video. Thanks a lot for watching. If you like this video, like it. If you don't, you got like the recommended tab. I wish you the best of luck. Have a good day. See y'all soon.